My Mercantile golden sister rudely insulted my present in front of everyone. But I quickly showed her who's boss by canceling all payment transfers, taking back the car keys, and now she's crying and begging. Hey Reddit, my name is Dylan, and I'm 24 years old. I work as a heavy machinery mechanic here in Michigan, and I've been working on engines and hydraulics since I was 18. Over the past 6 years, I've managed to work my way up from being just a shop apprentice to becoming the lead technician at my company. I'm making decent money for someone who decided to skip college and go straight into the trades. Here's something I learned early on about hard work and the real world. Everything has a cost, and nothing in this life comes free. You want your machines running smoothly? You pay the mechanic? You want your hydraulic systems upgraded properly? You pay the contractor. You want quality work that's going to last? You pay for quality parts. It's simple math that my family apparently never bothered to learn. I work at this manufacturing plant that operates around the clock, making parts for major automotive companies. I've been there for 6 years now, and when I first started, I was just the kid who swept floors and fetched coffee for the real mechanics. Now I'm the guy they call when $1 million production line goes down, and every minute of downtime is costing the company serious cash. It's a responsibility I take seriously, and it pays well. For the past 4 years, I've been living in this decent apartment that's nothing fancy, but it's mine. I drive a paid-off 2019 Tacoma that I bought used, and I actually have money sitting in my savings account. My coworkers think I'm boring because I'd rather stay home and work on my truck than hit the bars every weekend. But being boring keeps the lights on. While guys my age are financing lifted trucks they can't afford and buying rounds for strangers at clubs, I'm maxing out my retirement plan and building an emergency fund like a responsible adult. My apartment isn't fancy, but it's mine. My truck might not have all the latest bells and whistles, but the title has my name on it. Call me old-fashioned, but I believe in actually owning the things you drive and sleep in rather than making payments on them for the rest of your life. My family situation was typical working-class drama that had been building for years. My dad, Robert, used to operate heavy equipment before diabetes, and a bad knee put him on permanent disability. The man could run a bulldozer like it was a precision instrument, but he never learned how to operate a budget or manage money responsibly. My mom, Patricia, works as a receptionist at a dentist's office, making maybe $30,000 a year if she's lucky with her hours. They bought their house back in 2007, right before the housing market went to hell, and took everyone's equity with it. So now they're completely underwater on a mortgage they can barely afford even on their best months. Dad's disability payments come to about $1,900 monthly, and Mom brings home maybe $2,100 after taxes if she doesn't miss any days. Their mortgage payment alone is $1,500, and that's before you factor in utilities, insurance, groceries, and Dad's mounting medical expenses. Basic math says they're coming up short every single month, but somehow they never figured out how to adjust their lifestyle accordingly. Then there's my sister Chloe, who's 25 years old and 5 feet 3 inches of pure entitlement wrapped in fake designer clothes from outlets. She's one of those girls who genuinely believes that being pretty means the world owes her everything she wants without having to work for it. For the past 7 years, she's been bouncing between retail jobs and community college classes, always dropping out when things get challenging and always having some new scheme for making easy money. Chloe is exactly the type of person who posts Instagram stories about manifesting abundance and attracting prosperity, while simultaneously calling family members to ask for gas money. She'll drop $50 on getting her nails done and then call home crying 2 days later because she can't afford her car payment. Logic and personal responsibility have never been her strong suits, and my parents have enabled this behavior her entire adult life. The financial requests from my family started small at first, like they always do. Dad's truck needed a new transmission. Could I spot them $1,300 just this once? Mom's hours got cut at work. Could I help with groceries for a couple of weeks until things got back to normal? Chloe's car got repossessed because she spent her payment money on clothes. Could I co-sign for something cheap and reliable? Every single time, it was presented as temporary. Every single time, they promised they'd pay me back as soon as they got back on their feet. And every single time, I was made to feel like the asshole if I hesitated or asked questions about their spending habits. I remember the first big request very clearly because it set the template for everything that followed. Dad's 2010 Dodge had been making these horrible grinding noises for weeks, but he kept driving it because it still runs, which is peak dad logic right there. When the transmission finally gave up completely, he called me from the side of Interstate 75, like it was some unforeseeable act of God that nobody could have predicted. "Dylan, I need help," he said over the phone. "The truck's completely dead, and the tow truck driver is here. He wants $40 just to get it to the repair shop." The repair estimate came back at $3,000 for a complete transmission rebuild. Dad's disability check was already spent on bills, and Mom's next paycheck was still a week away. So I covered the entire repair cost because what was I supposed to do? Let my father walk to his doctor appointments? That should have been a one-time emergency situation. But instead, it became the template for every financial crisis that followed over the next 3 years. My girlfriend Jessica and I have been together for 3 years now, and she's a nurse at the local hospital. She kept telling me that I was being used and manipulated, but Jessica doesn't understand family loyalty the way I do. Her parents are both teachers who actually saved money for retirement and don't treat their adult children like personal banks. "Dylan, you're not helping them," she would say after every family crisis. "You're enabling them to continue making bad financial decisions." It was easy for her to say things like that. She didn't grow up watching her dad work 18-hour days just to keep the lights on. She didn't see her mom cry over bills at the kitchen table when she thought nobody was looking. When your family is drowning, you throw them a rope. That's what real men do for the people they care about. Except they weren't actually drowning, as I would eventually learn. They were just too lazy and irresponsible to learn how to swim. The real wake-up call was still coming. But first I had to watch my sister Chloe turn my generosity into her personal lifestyle fund and business investment opportunity. 3 years ago, Chloe came to me with what she called a serious business proposal. She had been working at some chain nail salon for about 8 months, constantly bitching about the management and talking about how she could run things so much better. Fair enough. Everyone thinks they can do their boss's job better than their actual boss. But Chloe took it several steps further than just complaining. She wanted to open her own nail salon, specifically targeting what she called upscale clientele in our area. We're talking about gel manicures, those dip powder treatments that cost $60 each, eyelash extensions, the whole Instagram beauty package, she explained with genuine enthusiasm. "Dylan, I've been researching this business model for months," she said, showing me her phone like she was presenting a proposal to a bank. "Look at these places in Detroit. They're booked solid every single day. There's absolutely nothing like this here in our town. Maybe there was a good reason there was nothing like that here, considering our town has about 12,000 people and half of them work at the same manufacturing plant I do." But Chloe had convinced herself there was this untapped market of women willing to pay premium prices for luxury beauty services. She needed $50,000, and this wasn't just for basic rent and equipment. She wanted to create what she called a total luxury experience for her customers. This meant custom lighting systems, massage chairs that cost more than my monthly truck payment, and some kind of special air filtration system that supposedly made the place smell like an expensive spa instead of acetone and nail polish. "This isn't just a nail salon," she explained with the confidence of someone who had never actually run a business. "It's a lifestyle brand. Women will pay premium prices for premium experiences, especially if they feel like they're treating themselves to something special." I have to admit, her presentation was actually impressive. She had done legitimate market research, identified her target demographic, and even found the perfect location in a newer strip mall on the good side of town. For once in her adult life, she seemed genuinely serious about something beyond her next Instagram post and whatever drama was happening with her current boyfriend. I made her put together a real business plan with revenue projections, competitor analysis, and detailed expense breakdowns. To her credit, she actually followed through and did all the work I requested. The numbers looked decent on paper, assuming she could charge big city prices in our small town and stay booked 6 days a week with minimal cancellations. But I wasn't about to give anyone $50,000 without proper legal protection and clear terms for repayment. I had my buddy Trevor from the Union Hall connect me with his brother-in-law Kevin, who handles contract law for small businesses. We drafted a very simple and straightforward agreement. 6% annual interest, 48-month repayment plan, with her 2020 Jeep Wrangler serving as collateral for the loan. "Why are you making this so complicated?" Chloe whined when I presented her with the paperwork. "We're family. Don't you trust me to pay you back?" "It's not about trust," I explained. "It's about treating this like the business transaction it actually is." She signed the documents because no legitimate lender was going to touch someone with a credit score in the low 500s. The salon build-out took 4 months from start to finish, and I'll give Chloe credit where it's due. She threw herself into this project like I had never seen her commit to anything before. She was there every single day, coordinating with contractors, picking out equipment, designing the layout, and managing every detail of the construction process. The transformation was genuinely impressive to watch unfold. What started as a generic retail space in a strip mall became this sleek, modern salon that looked like it belonged in the trendy part of Detroit rather than our small Michigan town. She had invested in high-end equipment, professional lighting, and all those luxury touches she had promised in her business plan. For the first time in her adult life, Chloe seemed to have found something she was genuinely passionate about and willing to work hard to achieve. For the first 10 months, everything went incredibly smooth. She made her loan payments on time every single month. $1,200 like clockwork, never late, never with excuses. She even sent me monthly reports with actual customer numbers, revenue figures, and expense breakdowns. The place looked busy whenever I drove past, and she was charging those premium prices she had projected. She even posted pictures of herself actually working and providing services, instead of just posing with coffee cups and motivational quotes. The opening week was particularly promising for her business. Chloe had managed to book herself solid for 4 days straight, mostly with local women who were curious about this new upscale salon in town. Her prices were definitely steep for our area, $60 for a basic manicure and pedicure combination. But women were actually paying those rates without too much complaint. Maybe she had actually figured something out about untapped demand in our local market. I started thinking that maybe Chloe had finally grown up and matured into a responsible adult. Maybe this business opportunity was exactly what she needed to prove to herself and everyone else that she could handle real responsibility and follow through on her commitments. Maybe I had been too harsh in my judgment of her work ethic and business sense. Then the social media influencer brain rot set in, and everything started falling apart. Her loan payments started coming late. Then she would skip entire months with vague excuses about seasonal fluctuations in the beauty industry or needing to invest profits back into business growth. The monthly reports with actual numbers turned into generic, "We had a great month" text messages with no data attached to back up her claims. After making consistent payments for the first 12 months of our agreement, she basically stopped paying me back completely. By the time I finally decided to pull the plug on this arrangement, she still owed me $41,000 of the original $50,000 loan. Meanwhile, her Instagram stories showed her eating at expensive restaurants, wearing new clothes, and taking weekend trips to Chicago for business research and networking opportunities. The salon's social media presence went from showcasing actual work and satisfied customers to posting generic motivational quotes and advertising coming soon services that never actually materialized. What really pissed me off was watching her turn my $50,000 investment into her personal slush fund for whatever impulse purchases caught her attention that week. She would buy expensive inventory that she didn't actually need, then turn around and sell it to other salons for quick cash when she needed money for rent or personal expenses. She hired 3 employees that she clearly couldn't afford to pay consistently, then tried to make me feel guilty when she eventually had to lay them off because business wasn't generating enough revenue. This woman was treating my $50,000 like it was monopoly money, rather than a serious business loan with real consequences. My parents started hitting me up for money more frequently during this same period. Could I help them with their mortgage payment this month because Dad's disability review was taking longer than expected? Their furnace needed emergency repairs in the middle of winter. Mom's car was making weird noises that probably meant expensive transmission work. It was always relatively small amounts, $400 here, $600 there. But those small amounts were adding up incredibly fast. Before I fully realized what was happening, I was paying their internet bill because it was only $70 a month. I was covering part of their mortgage payment because they were temporarily short after Dad's disability benefits got reviewed and delayed. I was even paying for Dad's insulin prescriptions because their insurance had some gap in coverage that I didn't fully understand, but seemed legitimate. By month 20 of this arrangement, I was essentially supporting 5 adults financially while they constantly complained about how difficult and unfair their lives were. That should have been my obvious clue to cut them off completely and force them to figure out their own problems. Instead, I kept paying because, well, they were family, and that's what family does for each other. The real education about my family's true character was still coming, and it would be more brutal and eye-opening than anything I could have imagined. By year 2 of Chloe's business venture, I was basically financing my entire family's lifestyle, while she had completely stopped making any loan payments to me. I was covering $900 monthly in various family expenses on top of my own bills and living expenses. Here's what pissed me off more than anything else. They all acted like I owed them this financial support. They weren't grateful or appreciative. They treated it like it was my job to keep them financially afloat because I happened to have the highest income in the family. They had turned my generosity into an entitlement, and I was too blind to see what was really happening. I remember one particular incident very clearly because it perfectly illustrated how entitled and ungrateful my family had become. Mom called me on a Tuesday evening asking for help with their electric bill. $250 that was due the next day, or they would get disconnected from the power grid. I transferred the money immediately without asking any questions because, electricity is a basic human need, and I wasn't going to let my parents sit in the dark. The very next day, Dad posted Facebook pictures from some sports bar where he was buying rounds of drinks for his high school buddies, celebrating one of his friends' birthdays. I could see at least $50 worth of beer and shots on that table, all paid for by my father, while I had just covered their electric bill so they could keep their lights on. When I called him out on this obvious hypocrisy, he got immediately defensive and hostile. "Man's gotta live a little, Dylan," he said, like I was being completely unreasonable. I can't just sit at home counting pennies all the time like some kind of miser. Right. He can't count pennies, but he can definitely count on me to pay his bills while he spends money on drinks for people who probably make more money than he does. The logic was absolutely infuriating. But this was just the beginning of their entitlement. Chloe was even worse than my parents when it came to financial irresponsibility and manipulation. She would post Instagram stories from expensive restaurants with artfully arranged food and craft cocktails, then text me an hour later asking for gas money because she was completely broke and couldn't afford to drive to work. Once she called me crying because her cell phone was about to get disconnected for non-payment, so I paid her $120 monthly bill without hesitation. That same week, she posted pictures of a massive shopping haul that must have cost at least 4 times what her phone bill was. When I confronted her about this obvious contradiction, she had the audacity to explain that these are business expenses because I have to look professional and put together for my clients. Professional? Right? Because spending hundreds of dollars on clothes while defaulting on a $41,000 loan is the height of business professionalism. This pattern continued for months, with both my parents and my sister treating my bank account like their personal emergency fund, while simultaneously posting evidence of their wasteful spending on social media. They had no shame about asking for money, and they had no gratitude when I provided it. It was just expected that I would always be there to bail them out of whatever financial crisis they had created for themselves that week. The breaking point came about 4 months ago when Chloe showed up at my apartment completely unannounced. She was wearing brand new Jordans that probably cost more than I spend on shoes in 2 years, carrying some overpriced coffee drink from one of those trendy places, and sporting a fresh manicure and haircut that clearly wasn't cheap. This was while she owed me $41,000 and hadn't made a loan payment in over 8 months. "Dylan, I found the perfect house," she announced, barging past me into my apartment like she owned the place. She immediately pulled out her phone and started showing me this Zillow listing with the enthusiasm of someone who had just discovered buried treasure. It was a nice suburban house with 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a 2-car garage, listed at $190,000. "Look at this kitchen, and oh my god, the master bathroom," she gushed, swiping through photos like she was already living there. "It has one of those rainfall showers that you see in fancy hotels. I can already picture my entire morning routine in that space." I was thinking she was about to ask me to co-sign a mortgage application, or maybe help with a down payment. That would still be a pretty big ask, considering what she already owed me, but it wouldn't be completely insane, given that she supposedly had a functioning business. But no, Chloe wanted me to buy the house outright. Not co-sign, not help with financing, but purchase it completely with my own money, and let her live there while she handled maintenance, and eventually bought me out when her business really took off. "Think about it as a smart investment," she said, like she was explaining basic financial principles to someone who didn't understand money. "You buy the house with your good credit and stable income. I take care of all the day-to-day responsibilities. And when my business really starts generating serious profit, I buy it from you at fair market value. Everybody wins in this arrangement." The sheer audacity of this proposal left me completely speechless for a solid 15 seconds. Here was a woman who owed me almost $41,000, hadn't made a payment in 8 months, was wearing more expensive clothes than I owned, and she wanted me to drop another $190,000 on upgrading her living situation. "You're kidding, right?" I finally managed to say. Why would I be kidding about this? She replied with genuine confusion. You've got good credit and a stable income. I've got sweat equity and local market knowledge. It's the perfect partnership for both of us. This woman who owed me almost $41,000, who had completely defaulted on her loan payments, who was clearly spending money on luxury items while claiming to be financially struggling, wanted me to essentially become her landlord and mortgage holder for a house that cost more than I made in 3 years. Chloe, you still owe me money from the salon loan, I pointed out, trying to keep my voice level and reasonable. That's completely different, she said dismissively. That's business debt from an investment that's still growing. This is a family investment opportunity that benefits both of us long term. The mental gymnastics required to make that distinction were truly Olympic-level impressive. Here she was, trying to separate her $41,000 default into a different category so she could ask for even more money. The answer is no, I said firmly. Her whole attitude shifted immediately. The fake sweetness and sisterly charm disappeared, replaced by the entitled brat I knew she really was underneath all the manipulation. Seriously? You're going to screw over your own sister because of money? She said, her voice getting louder and more aggressive. I'm trying to build something here, and you're going to let some petty financial disagreement ruin our family relationship? I'm not screwing anyone over, I replied. I'm just not buying you a house when you already owe me $41,000 that you refuse to pay back. Whatever, Dylan, but don't expect me to care when you're 30 years old and completely alone with nothing but your precious savings account to keep you company. She stormed out of my apartment, slamming my door hard enough that Mrs. Thompson next door probably heard it and wondered what the hell was going on. Within 3 hours, my phone was absolutely exploding with messages from family members I barely talk to on a regular basis. Mom, Dad, and even my cousin Nicole, who I maybe talk to twice a year, were all sending me variations of the same guilt trip message. Couldn't I just help Chloe out one more time? She's family. She's trying to better herself and build a stable future. I was being selfish and prioritizing money over family relationships. The usual manipulation tactics that had worked on me for years. Mom's Facebook post that night was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive family drama. Family means being there when it matters most. Some people just don't understand that concept. The passive aggression was impressive, even by her usual standards, and I knew it was specifically directed at me for refusing to enable Chloe's latest scheme. But I had absolutely no idea that they were all planning something behind my back that would completely change everything and finally show me exactly what kind of people I was dealing with. Dad's 57th birthday was coming up in late November, and he had been dropping hints for weeks about wanting to do something nicer than usual this year instead of the typical cookout in their backyard. This made sense to me because his birthday usually got completely overshadowed by Thanksgiving preparations, and he'd been pretty down lately since his disability review got delayed again for the 3rd time. I decided to surprise him with something genuinely special for once. I booked a private dining room at Applebee's, which cost me $250 just to reserve the space for the evening. I also arranged for a custom birthday cake and coordinated all the decorations. The planning took several days because I wanted everything to be perfect for him. I called Uncle Frank to coordinate everyone's schedules and make sure he could attend. I reached out to my cousins to confirm they would be available that evening. I even arranged transportation for my aunt, who doesn't feel comfortable driving at night anymore because of her vision problems. This wasn't just going to be a casual dinner. This was supposed to be a proper family celebration that Dad would actually remember and appreciate. But the real surprise was parked right next to my Tacoma in the restaurant parking lot. A certified pre-owned 2021 Toyota RAV4 with low mileage and all-wheel drive. It cost me $20,000, which definitely hurt my budget, but it seemed completely worth it for what I hoped it would mean to him. Their 2012 Malibu was on its absolute last legs, making mechanical noises that even I couldn't diagnose properly. And Dad desperately needed something reliable with better ground clearance for Michigan winters. I had spent 3 weeks shopping around for exactly the right vehicle. It had to be reliable, affordable to maintain, and practical for their specific needs. The RAV4 checked every single box on my list. It had excellent safety ratings, decent gas mileage, and Toyota's well-earned reputation for lasting forever with basic maintenance. I even purchased the extended warranty because I knew Dad wouldn't keep up with regular maintenance schedules without someone constantly reminding him. I told Chloe about my dinner plans because I needed someone to help coordinate getting Mom and Dad to the restaurant without spoiling the surprise. Plus, despite all our recent conflicts, he was still her father too. and I thought she might want to be involved in making his birthday special. Chloe was weirdly enthusiastic about helping with the coordination, which should have been my first red flag. She asked a bunch of detailed questions about the timing, who else was coming, and whether I had told anyone else in the family about the car surprise. She offered to handle all the coordination details so I could focus on the surprise itself. "Don't worry about anything," she said with more enthusiasm than she had shown for anything in months. "I'll make sure Mom and Dad get there on time. This is going to be absolutely perfect." Tony, my supervisor at work and the closest thing I have to a mentor, warned me that something felt off about the whole situation. "Kid, your sister's been treating you like a personal bank for 3 years," he said during our lunch break. "Now she's suddenly being helpful and cooperative? You better watch your back." Tony has been working in industrial jobs for 35 years and has dealt with every kind of family drama you can imagine. When he gives advice, smart people listen carefully. But I figured that even Chloe wouldn't be cruel enough to mess with Dad's birthday celebration. How incredibly wrong I was about that. November 30th, 7 p.m. I'm sitting alone in this private dining room at Applebee's, staring at a table full of empty chairs while the server awkwardly explains that they can hold our reservation for another 40 minutes before they have to start charging me for the space anyway. At 7:20, I called Dad's phone, straight to voicemail. At 7:35, I tried Mom's number, also voicemail. By 7:50, Chloe's phone was going directly to some disconnected number message that made no sense. By 8:20, I was sitting there eating an overpriced steak dinner completely alone while frantically texting family members who weren't responding to any of my messages. The server kept coming by and asking if I wanted to go ahead and order food for the rest of the table, clearly uncomfortable with the awkward situation unfolding in front of her. I kept making increasingly desperate excuses. Maybe there was unexpected traffic. Maybe someone had a last-minute emergency. Maybe the family was just running late because of some misunderstanding about the time. Inside, I knew something was seriously and fundamentally wrong with this entire situation. That's when I made the mistake of checking social media to see if anyone had posted anything that might explain where everyone was. Chloe's Instagram story, posted about an hour earlier, was like a knife to the gut. "Real family celebrates together, happy birthday, Dad." The photo showed my parents, Uncle Frank, Aunt Jennifer, and my cousins all gathered around Uncle Frank's garage, eating pizza and drinking beer like they were having the time of their lives. Dad was wearing a birthday hat and looking happier than I had seen him in months. They were all laughing and clearly enjoying themselves. The next slide in her story was even more brutal. "Some people think money matters more than family. We know what really counts." Then the group text message hit my phone like a sledgehammer. Chloe had written, "Hope you enjoyed eating alone, Dylan. Dad had a real birthday celebration with people who actually care about him." Uncle Frank chimed in, "Great party tonight. Nothing beats genuine family time with people who show up when it matters." Mom added, "Best birthday surprise ever. So grateful for people who understand what family really means." Not one single person in that group text mentioned that I was supposed to be there. Not one person asked where I was or why I didn't show up to the celebration I had planned and paid for. They all just acted like excluding me from Dad's birthday party was the plan from the very beginning. Like I had never been invited in the first place. I stared at my phone for about 40 seconds, trying to process the sheer cruelty of what they had done to me. Then I typed back, "What the hell is wrong with you people? I'm sitting here alone at Dad's birthday dinner that I planned and paid for, while you're all celebrating behind my back like I don't exist." The group chat went completely silent for exactly 3 minutes. Then Chloe responded with what would become the most important text message of this entire story. "You can rot alone with your pathetic gift. Nobody needs you or your money." That's when I completely lost it. I walked out to the parking lot, took a picture of the Toyota RAV4 with the big red bow still attached to the hood, and sent it to the group chat with the message, "Don't worry, I'm definitely keeping my pathetic gift." The response to that photo was immediate and dramatic. Dad texted, "Wait, what is that?" Mom sent, "Dylan, is that?" Uncle Frank wrote, "Holy shit, is that a new car?" Suddenly, Chloe's attitude changed completely, and everyone's tone shifted from smug satisfaction to panic and desperation. My phone started ringing immediately. First Mom, then Dad, then Uncle Frank calling back to back. I let every single call go directly to voicemail because I was done talking to any of them. The group chat absolutely exploded with messages asking about the car, apologizing for misunderstandings, and suddenly wanting to talk things through like family should. It was way too late for any of that bullshit. Jessica showed up when I called her, took one look at the situation, and immediately understood exactly what had happened without me having to explain every detail. "They planned this," she said, sitting down across from me and grabbing a menu. "This wasn't some spontaneous decision or miscommunication. Your sister coordinated this entire thing specifically to humiliate you in front of the whole family." "But why?" I asked, still trying to process what they had done. "What did I do besides help them financially for 3 years straight?" "That's exactly what you did wrong," Jessica explained. "You helped them so much that they started taking your generosity completely for granted. Now they're angry that you won't buy Chloe a house, so they decided to teach you a lesson about your place in this family." We finished dinner while Jessica helped me work through what had really happened here. This wasn't just about one birthday party or one family gathering. This was a deliberate message from my family. Fall in line and keep paying for everything we want, or get completely cut out of family events and treated like you don't exist. The Toyota RAV4 was still sitting in the parking lot next to my Tacoma. The Applebee's bill was on my credit card. But now I finally understood exactly what kind of people I was dealing with and what our relationship really meant to them. It was time to show them what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you for 3 years straight. They wanted to play games with family loyalty and financial manipulation? Game on. Tuesday morning, I called Kevin, the contract lawyer who had drafted Chloe's original loan paperwork. Kevin is one of those guys who chose law specifically because he genuinely enjoys watching bad people face real consequences for their actions. "I want to accelerate the loan," I told him without any small talk. "I want the full balance due in 30 days, or I take the car and liquidate her business assets to recover what I'm owed." "That acceleration clause that Chloe thought was unnecessary legal bullshit?" Kevin said with obvious satisfaction. "Totally enforceable. She hasn't made a payment in 9 months, which means you can demand the full $41,000 immediately with legal backing." "All right," Kevin continued. "I'll draft the demand letter today and get it served properly. Good news is that we've got rock-solid paperwork from the beginning. This should move through the system quickly if she tries to fight it in court." While Kevin handled the legal notices, I started systematically cutting off the money supply that had been keeping my family afloat for years. First, I canceled the automatic bank transfer that had been covering their mortgage shortfall, $900 every month that I had been paying for almost 3 years straight. Then I canceled their internet service, which was $70 monthly. Then their car insurance, which was another $130. I even canceled the Netflix account I had been covering because it's only $18 a month and everyone uses it. Each cancellation felt like lifting a massive weight off my shoulders. For years, I had been carrying financial burdens that weren't mine to carry, while my family treated my generosity like it was something they were entitled to receive. No more of that. Their bills were about to hit them like a wrecking ball, and they had absolutely no idea what was coming their way. That afternoon, I drove straight to Chloe's salon. She was in the middle of doing some woman's nails, probably charging $50 for what takes about 25 minutes of actual work. I walked directly to the back office without saying a word to anyone. She followed me, looking annoyed and irritated that I had interrupted her during business hours. "Dylan, you can't just walk into my business like you own the place," she said, with that entitled attitude I had grown to hate. I dropped the legal papers directly onto her desk without any explanation. 30 days, I said calmly. Full balance of $41,000. After that, I take the Jeep and liquidate all business assets to recover what you owe me. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language she couldn't understand. "This is a joke, right? You can't be serious about this." "Dead serious," I replied. "You wanted to play games with family loyalty, so now we're playing games. Game on." Chloe tried every manipulation tactic she had ever learned. First came the tears and emotional breakdowns. Then anger and screaming about how unfair I was being. Then guilt trips about family relationships and how money shouldn't matter more than blood relatives. When none of that worked, she got genuinely nasty. "You're pathetic!" She screamed loud enough that the customers in the front of the salon probably heard every word. "This is all about one stupid dinner party that hurt your precious feelings." "No," I said, staying completely calm. "This is about 3 years of being treated like garbage by people who think they're entitled to my money without any consequences for their behavior." I left her standing there with the legal papers in her hands. From her parking lot, I called the repossession company. They were very interested in a Jeep worth $28,000 with clear legal grounds for repossession and proper documentation. My next stop was Mom and Dad's house. I found them in their living room, probably planning their next passive-aggressive Facebook post about family values and ungrateful children. They looked smug and satisfied when I walked in, like they had successfully taught me some kind of important lesson about my place in the family hierarchy. That attitude lasted about 2 minutes. "Starting next month, you cover your own mortgage," I announced. "Full payment, $1,500 monthly, no more help from me." Mom blinked in confusion. "But Dylan, we can't afford that payment without your help. You know our financial situation. Then figure it out like responsible adults," I replied. Dad tried to intimidate me by standing up and using his most authoritative voice. "Is this because we didn't invite you to my birthday party? You're going to put us out on the street over hurt feelings? I'm not putting you anywhere," I said. "I'm just stopping my charity contributions to people who think I'm a sucker they can manipulate whenever they want something." Dad's expression changed when he realized I was serious. "Wait a minute. What about that car sitting in your driveway? You bought that for me as my birthday gift. It was supposed to be mine." I stopped walking toward the door. "What about it? You can't just keep something that was meant to be a gift for your father. That Toyota was bought with our family in mind." "Watch me keep it," I said. "You're being vindictive and cruel," Dad shouted, his voice getting desperate. "That car was purchased as our gift, and you're being an ungrateful son who's punishing his own parents because your feelings got hurt over a simple misunderstanding." The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. They had deliberately excluded me from the birthday party I planned and paid for, publicly humiliated me in front of the entire extended family, and now they were demanding I give them the gift anyway. "Here's the thing," I said, maintaining my calm demeanor despite wanting to scream. "That car was a surprise for someone I thought deserved it and would appreciate it. Turns out I was completely wrong about that." "We're your parents," Mom cried, her voice getting high and desperate. "We raised you, we fed you, we sacrificed for you. You owe us that car, and you know it." "I don't owe you anything," I replied firmly, "especially not after the cruel stunt you pulled at Dad's birthday party." Dad tried a different approach, switching to a more conciliatory tone. "Son, we made a mistake, and we can fix this situation. But keeping that car is just cruel and vindictive. You're better than this." "You want to know what's actually cruel?" I asked. "Planning a secret birthday party specifically designed to exclude the one person who's been paying your bills for 3 years straight. That's what cruel looks like." I walked toward the door, making it clear this conversation was over. "The car stays with me. Figure out your own transportation like adults." I left them standing there in their living room, probably already calculating how they were going to afford their next mortgage payment without my financial assistance. The nuclear option was officially armed and ready to deploy. 10 weeks later, the financial carnage was complete and devastating. Chloe's Jeep disappeared first. The repo guys showed up at 5:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning, hooked it up professionally, and drove off while she was probably still asleep in her apartment. She posted Instagram stories claiming it had been stolen, complete with crying selfies and dramatic appeals, asking if anyone had seen her vehicle. The comments were full of people suggesting she called the police to report the theft. If only they knew the real story behind why her car had vanished overnight. But losing her transportation was just the beginning of Chloe's problems. The salon went under 4 weeks later because it turns out that when you default on a business loan and can't make rent payments, landlords don't care about your Instagram follower count or your dreams of building a lifestyle brand. Kevin handled the asset seizure process with professional efficiency. Equipment got sold to recover part of the debt. The lease was terminated, and her business dream was officially over. Chloe tried desperately to get emergency loans from 4 different financial institutions, but every lender ran her credit report, saw the defaulted debt, and basically laughed her out of their offices. One loan officer actually called me for verification of the debt. I was very detailed and thorough in my explanation of exactly what kind of borrower she had proven herself to be. She's working at Great Clips now, cutting hair for $14 an hour, plus whatever tips she can gilt out of customers who feel sorry for her. She lives in a studio apartment above a Thai restaurant where the smell of grease and cooking oil follows her everywhere she goes. Her new boyfriend, Tyler, is this complete loser who thinks he's going to make it big as a Twitch streamer. He drives a rusted-out Cavalier that barely runs and constantly borrows money from Chloe that he never pays back. They're a perfect match for each other. My parents lasted longer than Chloe, but not by much. Month 1, without my mortgage assistance, they managed to scrape together the payment by borrowing money from Uncle Frank and selling Mom's jewelry collection. Month 2, they were officially behind on their mortgage, and the company started calling them daily with increasingly urgent payment demands. Dad picked up part-time work at the local hardware store, which probably destroyed his knees even more, but managed to cover some of their basic bills. Mom started getting involved in some multi-level marketing scheme, selling weight loss shakes and posting Facebook videos about how these products had completely changed her life and could change yours too. Their 2012 Malibu finally died completely in week 7 of their new financial reality. It just stopped running in the Walmart parking lot and refused to start no matter what they tried. The repair estimate came back higher than the car was actually worth, so now they were stuck walking everywhere or begging rides from neighbors who were getting tired of their constant requests. The decline was swift and absolutely brutal to watch. Within 1 month of losing their financial safety net, the facade of their middle-class lifestyle completely crumbled. Dad's diabetes medication became a luxury item they had to budget carefully for. Mom started shopping exclusively at discount grocery stores and clipping coupons like it was a part-time job. By month 4, they received an eviction notice giving them 30 days to pay their full mortgage balance or get out of the house they had lived in for over 15 years. They ended up moving into a 2-bedroom rental apartment in the sketchy part of town. The kind of place where gunshots are just background noise and your neighbors have loud domestic disputes in the hallway at all hours. The monthly rent on their new apartment was actually higher than their old mortgage payment. But nobody was going to give them another home loan with credit scores that looked like they had been put through a paper shredder. Then Chloe decided to pay me a personal visit that would prove to be a serious mistake on her part. It was a Thursday night around 9:30 p.m. when she showed up at my apartment building. I could smell the alcohol on her breath from 12 feet away. Her hair was greasy and unwashed, her makeup was smeared, and she looked like she hadn't slept properly in days. "Dylan!" she screamed before I had even opened my door fully. "You vindictive piece of shit! Open up right now!" I stepped outside instead of letting her into my apartment. "What do you want, Chloe?" "What do I want?" She laughed like a person who had completely lost their mind. "I want you to stop being a freaking psychopath and fix what you've broken." She was swaying unsteadily on her feet, pointing at me with a half-empty bottle of Smirnoff vodka. "You ruined my life! You destroyed my business! You took my car! You ruined everything I worked for! All because you're a petty little bitch who can't handle family disagreements like an adult." "You ruined your own life," I said calmly. "I was building something real, and you destroyed it because I hurt your precious feelings at one stupid birthday party." Neighbors were starting to look out their windows to see what all the commotion was about. Mrs. Thompson from next door was definitely recording this entire confrontation on her phone. "Chloe, you need to leave my property right now." "I'm not going anywhere until you fix this mess," she slurred. "Call off your lawyers, give me money to restart my business, and stop being such a vindictive asshole." She took a step closer to me, still waving that bottle around dangerously. "You think you're so much better than the rest of us? You're just a freaking mechanic. You'll never be anything more than a loser with a toolbox. Get off my property now," I said firmly. "Make me, you pathetic." She reared back and hurled the vodka bottle directly at my Tacoma. Glass exploded across my windshield, creating a spiderweb pattern across the entire driver's side. Something inside me snapped completely. I shoved her backward harder than I probably meant to. She stumbled and went down hard on the pavement, scraping her hands and knees as she hit the ground. "You freaking jerk!" she screamed from where she had fallen. "Everyone saw that! You just hit me! I have witnesses!" That's when I heard the sirens in the distance. Someone in the apartment complex had already called 911 about the disturbance. 3 police officers showed up within minutes and took detailed statements from me, Chloe, and 4 different neighbors who had witnessed the entire confrontation from their windows. Mrs. Thompson handed over her phone video to the officers without even being asked, which showed everything that had happened from start to finish. The footage clearly showed Chloe throwing the bottle at my truck and me defending myself when she became aggressive. "Sir, do you want to press charges for the property damage to your vehicle?" one of the officers asked me. I looked at my Tacoma's completely shattered windshield, then at Chloe sitting in the back of the patrol car, still drunk and still screaming about how I had ruined her entire life. "Yes, I absolutely want to press charges," I said without hesitation. They arrested her for criminal mischief and public intoxication. I spent the next morning at the courthouse filing a restraining order against her, but my parents weren't done making things worse for themselves either. They started showing up at my work site during lunch breaks, trying to corner me in front of my coworkers and demanding that I help them with Dad's medical bills. When I refused to engage with them, they would wait outside my apartment building, trying to catch me when I came home from work. When I still wouldn't talk to them, they escalated to banging on my door at all hours of the day and night, always with some new crisis that required my immediate financial assistance. After Tony, my supervisor, had to escort them off company property twice for disturbing the workplace, and my landlord started complaining about the constant disturbances they were causing, I filed a second restraining order. Last month, everything came full circle in the most satisfying way possible. But first, let me tell you about the consequences Chloe faced for her drunken property destruction and harassment, the criminal mischief charge stuck in court. She got 8 months of probation, a $1,200 fine that she couldn't afford, and had to pay for my windshield replacement, which was another $500 she definitely didn't have. The judge wasn't impressed with her drunken bottle-throwing tantrum, especially after watching Mrs. Thompson's clear video evidence of the entire incident. The restraining order was even better for my peace of mind. It mandated a minimum distance of 150 yards between us at all times, no contact through third parties, no social media harassment, and automatic jail time if she violated any of these terms. Tyler, her wannabe Twitch streamer boyfriend, bailed on her the day after she got arrested. Apparently, being associated with someone who throws bottles at cars and gets restraining orders filed against them isn't great for building an online brand. He moved back in with his mother and blocked Chloe on all social media platforms. She tried reaching out to me through our cousin Nicole, begging me to drop the charges and lift the restraining order. Nicole actually called me to relay the message. She says she was drunk and didn't mean to break your truck window. She's really struggling financially, Dylan. She's barely making ends meet at Great Clips, living in that awful apartment above the restaurant. Can't you just let this whole thing go? No, Nicole, I said simply. Actions have consequences. 2 weeks later, I had to get that second restraining order against my parents. They had started showing up at my work site during lunch breaks, trying to corner me in front of my coworkers and demanding that I help them with Dad's medical bills. Tony had to escort them off company property twice when they refused to leave voluntarily. It all started with a phone call from Uncle Frank. Dylan, we need to talk, he said. Your parents are in real trouble financially. What kind of trouble? I asked, though I already knew the answer. They're about to lose their rental apartment. Patricia's been eating nothing but rice and beans for 3 weeks straight. Robert's diabetes medication costs more than they make in a month. They're asking everyone in the family for help, but nobody has that kind of money to spare. I let that information sink in for a moment. And you're calling me because you're the only one who can fix this situation, Uncle Frank said desperately. Look, I know things got heated between you all, but they're family. They made mistakes, but they're really suffering now. No, Rick, I said firmly and hung up. 3 days later, Mom called me for the first time in 4 months. Dylan, her voice was shaky like she had been crying for hours. Can we please talk about everything that's happened? About what? I replied coldly. About everything. We messed up. We messed up really badly, she said through tears. Your father's in the hospital. His blood sugar spiked dangerously because we couldn't afford his insulin this month. The medical bills are piling up, and we honestly don't know what we're going to do. The old Dylan would have been in his Tacoma within 5 minutes, driving to the hospital to take care of everything. The new Dylan had learned some hard lessons about enabling versus helping. That's tough, Mom. I hope you figure it out, I said. Dylan, please, we're begging you, she sobbed. We'll do anything you want. Sign contracts, pay interest, whatever terms you set. We just desperately need help. Like the help I gave you for 3 years before you decided to humiliate me in front of the entire family? She started having a complete breakdown over the phone. We were wrong. Chloe was wrong. The whole birthday thing was wrong. And we know that now. Please don't let your father die because we were stupid and cruel. Dad's not going to die, I said. Not if you actually manage your money properly instead of depending on me to bail you out of every crisis. 4 days later, Chloe showed up at my apartment again. This time she looked absolutely rough, hair unwashed, wearing clothes I recognized from 3 years ago, with dark circles under her eyes that made her look 10 years older. Dylan, we need to talk, she said quietly. Do we? I replied. Mom told me about Dad, about the hospital bills, about everything that's happening to them. She was actually shaking as she spoke. This girl who had called me pathetic and told me to rot alone was standing in my doorway, trembling with fear. I was wrong, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. About everything. The house thing, the birthday party, all of it. I was entitled and stupid, and I treated you like garbage when you were just trying to help our family. Yeah, you did, I agreed. I'll sign whatever legal documents you want, she continued desperately. I'll pay back every penny with interest. I'll work 4 jobs if that's what it takes. Just please, please help them. Please help Dad. The desperation was completely real this time. No fake tears, no manipulation tactics, no Instagram-worthy drama. Just raw, genuine fear about watching our parents lose everything they had left. Here's the deal, I said after considering her proposal. I'll cover Dad's medical bills this one time, but everything else changes permanently. Anything you want, she said, nodding frantically. You pay me back $60 every month until your debt is completely clear. Miss one single payment and I'm done forever. No exceptions, no excuses, no second chances. Yes, whatever you want, she agreed immediately. Mom and Dad get a family loan for their basic expenses: rent, utilities, groceries, market rate interest, structured payment plan, and real consequences for defaulting on the terms. She nodded so fast I thought her neck might snap. I'll do it today. I'll explain everything to them. And the birthday party situation, I continued. You explain to everyone in the family exactly what you did and why it was wrong. Public apology, full accountability. I'll post it on Facebook today, she promised. I helped them because Jessica was right about something important. Being the bigger person doesn't mean being a pushover or a doormat. It means having clear boundaries and actually enforcing them when people cross the line. Dad is doing fine now. His medication is covered, and he's managing his diet much better than before. Mom and Dad are living within their actual financial means for the first time in years, and they're grateful in a way they never were when I was just giving them money without any strings attached. Chloe is working 3 different jobs and hasn't missed a single payment yet. She posted that Facebook apology just like she promised, admitting that she had manipulated the birthday party situation and treated me badly when I was trying to help the family. Several family members commented asking pointed questions about what had really happened, and I'm sure she didn't enjoy answering them. Jessica stood by me through the entire repayment negotiation process, helping me structure the loan terms so they were fair but firm. Having someone who actually understands healthy boundaries makes all the difference in the world. The best part is how the entire family dynamic has changed. Nobody asks me for money anymore without offering proper terms and collateral. Nobody assumes I'll just pay for things because we happen to be related. Nobody takes my generosity for granted or treats my bank account like their personal emergency fund. Jessica and I are talking seriously about getting engaged. She's been incredible through this whole mess, supporting my decisions even when they were difficult and painful to make. It turns out that having a partner who actually respects boundaries and doesn't try to manipulate you is pretty amazing. I've learned that family isn't just about who has the most money or who's willing to bail everyone else out of their problems. But it's also not about being a doormat for people who think your wallet is their emergency fund whenever they make bad financial decisions. Sometimes the only way to save people who are drowning is to stop throwing them ropes and make them learn how to swim on their own. Setting boundaries and enforcing consequences isn't cruel. It's necessary for healthy relationships where people actually respect each other. My family learned the hard way that actions have consequences, and I learned that helping people and enabling people are 2 completely different things. Now we all know where we stand, and honestly, our relationships are stronger and more honest than they've ever been before.